The meeting to order of the Health Commission, Community and Public Health Committee for Tuesday, February 20th, 2024.
I will call the roll. I'll start with you, Commissioner Gerardo,
Present.
Commissioner Christian,
Present.
and Commissioner Chung.
Present.
I will read the land acknowledgement. The San Francisco Health Commission acknowledges that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First Peoples. Commissioners, the second item on the agenda is are the minutes of December 19th, 2023 meeting.
I so move to
Second.
approve.
And I'm sorry, I didn't hear a second. Did we get a second? Okay, great. Is there any public comment in the room? I don't see any public comment in the room. There's nobody who's gotten accommodation for this meeting to participate remotely. So I will do, actually, there's no need to do roll call because we're all in the room. Would you like to call the item, or actually all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. All those opposed? None. Great. Let's move on to item 3, the Environmental Health Branch Consumer Protection Program, Unpermitted Food Vetting. And I'll pull up the presentation. Just give me a minute, please.
Are we able to control it from here, yes?
No, just let me know and I will do it.
Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, commissioners and Mr. Moritz. Thank you for providing the Department of Public Health Environmental Health Branch to today's presentation. My name is Terrence Hong and I'm one of the managers of the branch's food safety program. Today I come and stand before you wearing 2 different hats. The first hat is I've been a public health professional for over 25 years. And the other hat I wear is realizing that as a health regulator, those who I regulate are also a fellow human, and I treat them with complete compassion and understanding because I don't think that Dr. Colfax or Dr. Phillip would hire anyone in their staff who wouldn't think otherwise. As you already know, the department is by far the largest city agency overall. And that of course makes sense when you consider that under that fold is Zuckerberg General and Laguna Honda, both under DPH's umbrella. The Population Health Division also falls under that umbrella. And under the Population Health umbrella is the Environmental Health Branch. Can I ask you for the first slide, please? Thank you. So you see circled there, the branch, Environmental Health Branch, is the enforcement arm of the department, overseeing almost 40 unique programs: food safety, water safety, hazardous materials, healthy housing, vector control, cannabis, massage, body arts, just to name a few. The food safety program is made up of approximately 40 inspectors, when fully staffed, but that's another story for another day. Staffed of young and old, or I should say experienced, because I fall in that category now, Asian, Hispanic, African American, Latinx, Caucasian, gay, and straight. We look like the communities that we regulate, and we feel that makes us better off for that intentional diversity. We have conducted educational trainings in English, Spanish, Tagalog, Punjabi, Hindi, Chinese Mandarin, Chinese Cantonese, Arabic, and Russian. Perhaps the biggest secret is that we prioritize education over enforcement. In addition to supervising a team of inspectors who oversee the southwest quadrant of the city, most notably the Richmond and Sunset neighborhoods in Golden Gate Park, I also, with 3 senior inspectors under my charge, were tasked with the department's response to the urban and statewide challenge that is unpermitted vending. To that end, I'll now ask the inspectors to take the commissioners behind the scenes on a remote tour that has the goal of showing you in real time where San Francisco currently finds itself as society itself wrestles with the ethical determination that this challenge is a microcosm of: economic opportunity, cultural neutrality, food safety and food science, and the rule of law. I'll return at the end of the presentation should the commissioners have any follow-up questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, Secretary Morris, and Dr. Colfax. My name is Christina Lee. First of all, thank you for inviting us to present here today. My name is Christina Lee. I'm one of the 3 senior health inspectors with environmental health and one of the 3 seniors in the unpermitted vending program and mobile food facility program. And I've been with the Consumer Protection Program for 7 years. So this is a brief oversight of what we're going to discuss today. What is unpermitted vending and how does this differ from permitted mobile food facilities? What is environmental health's role in unpermitted vending? And what challenges do we face now and in the future for this program? Our branch's mission statement is improving environments, protecting health, and promoting equity. And how do we do so? How does the department do so? We enforce state and local regulations, and we also collaborate with others to improve conditions that cause health impacts or contribute to health inequities. Next slide, please. So what is unpermitted food vending, also known as UPV? The Environmental Health Branch enforces 2 codes, the California Retail Food Code and the San Francisco Health Code, Article 8. The California Retail Food Code requires all individuals who sell and provide food to the public to obtain a permit to operate for their facility. However, an unpermitted vendor will sell, peddle, or give away their food to the public without the approval of the local health jurisdiction. This can include cooked or uncooked food, as you can see on the pictures to your right. These foods can also be sold from a table, cart, truck, trailer, car, or the sidewalk, or even from the vendor's own home. All these environments may have unsanitary conditions. Next slide, please. So what do we inspectors encounter when we're out in the field with these unpermitted vendors? We see food that is stored in improper containers with no refrigeration. You can see in the picture below that the hot dogs are stored in cardboard boxes, and they can be stored there for hours on end. In addition, there is a lack of personal hygiene. All proper food safety starts off with hand washing prior to conducting any sorts of food prep. Most unpermitted vendors do not have any sort of hand washing station set up, and they can conduct food prep and cook without washing their hands prior. There's also unsafe cooking setups, as you can see below in that cart. These carts that you see are not built with the approval of the health department, nor are they approved by the fire department. Next slide, please. So what are the risks of consuming food from an unpermitted vendor? This food can sit for hours and therefore promote bacterial growth. Additionally, this food is exposed to contaminants, which could mean dust, vermin, dirt, sneezes, and coughs from the food vendor themselves. The foods can also be undercooked to improper temperatures. Foods can also be obtained from an unapproved source. And what is an unapproved source? We don't know where these vendors are obtaining their food. They could be growing vegetables in their own backyard. They could also be making the hot dogs in their own home. All these factors can contribute to the risk of a foodborne illness and can make the public extremely sick. Next slide, please. Thank you. So how does a mobile food facility, also known as an MFF, differ from an unpermitted food vendor? So MFFs are these food trucks that you see on the streets of San Francisco. These have been permitted and inspected with proper structural requirements. And what's proper structural requirements? This includes approved floors, walls, ceilings, and any equipment used for food prep or cooking. The picture you see to your right is the interior of an approved food truck, but there are many approved food carts as well. These trucks and carts are routinely inspected for sanitary conditions and proper food safety. Next slide, please. So MFFs that are approved to operate will have a SFDPH decal, which is the picture to your left, and a placard, which is the picture to your right. Unpermitted vendors will neither have a decal nor a placard. The public should not be purchasing food from any of these vendors. And then I will have my colleague, Will Simon, come up to introduce the next section.
Okay. Hello and good afternoon, health commissioners. My name is Abel Simon, and I too am a senior health inspector for the Department of Public Health. I've been an inspector for 9 years, and I'm a certified Spanish translator. In my experience, being a fluent Spanish speaker is beneficial in this program due to the vast amount of Spanish speakers that we encounter. I will briefly be talking about the different partnerships and collaborations that take place in conjunction with the Department of Public Health in an effort to curb unpermitted vending. Next slide, please. As you are aware, addressing unpermitted food vending requires a multi-jurisdictional collaboration among sister agencies. Some of the agencies that we partner with include the Department of Public Works, the San Francisco Fire Department, the San Francisco Police Department, and the Port of San Francisco. Our team is currently made up of the following: 1 principal health inspector, that would be our manager, 3 senior health inspectors, 1 senior clerk, and our team has access to 3 Spanish speakers on a majority of our missions. Next slide, please. These joint missions are conducted in various neighborhoods around the city and for different reasons. Some examples of where we have conducted missions include the 90-day ban in the Mission District, scheduled once weekly in the Mission, but have gone more than once as needed. This particular mission is still in effect, and we do go out there weekly. We have also conducted sweeps in the DMAC nighttime missions for a minimum of twice a week or more often as needed. For context, DMAC stands for the Drug Market Agency Coordination Center and are conducted after daytime hours up until midnight. During the holiday season, we were out at Union Square when the ice skating rink was up and active multiple times per week and as needed. During the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, also known as the APEC Summit, we were also conducting missions around downtown. And for the last couple of years, we have been at the waterfront from Fisherman's Wharf down to the ballpark on weekends and select game nights. The following stats are the missions that have been conducted up to date. In 2023, we conducted 92 missions, and as of now, we have conducted 25 missions for this year. It is extremely important to note that for every 1 vendor that we see, there are sometimes 5 or even up to 20 vendors who flee the scene and we are unable to reach. For all the missions that have been conducted, we always provide education, and some missions are a combination of education and enforcement. This is a conservative projection of the number of vendors that we have that we've encountered, which would be over 400. Currently, there is no local or state law that prevents a defiant vendor from packing up and leaving. Next slide, please. The Department of Public Health provides staff who is bilingual in many different languages. Our staff also provides outreach materials in multiple languages. However, a majority of the time when we hand out information, it's in English and Spanish. We work to build relationships with the community and vendors that we encounter. Our inspectors also assess the vendor setup and let the vendors know what is needed in order for them to get potentially approved or have their unit looked at by their department. However, this has proven to be difficult due to the fact that at times we encounter defiant vendors and passerbys who rile each other up and make it a hostile environment. On those, when we try to educate and provide information during enforcement, on those occasions, I personally will ask that they make an appointment with us and they hand out our information so that way we can speak at our office where the environment is more calm and conducive to give more information to the vendors. Next slide, please. As stated before, the Department of Public Health always provides educational outreach to unpermitted vendors. Information on the brochure includes our department's number, as well as the contact for the Office of Small Business. The Office of Small Business, who like us, have Spanish speakers on site. I always encourage vendors to reach out to the Office of Small Business to inquire about potential grants or any type of help that might be available to them to get their business started or purchase an approved cart. The brochures are in English and Spanish and give general information on what is required and also state the importance of food safety, as it is an effort to protect the community that we all care about from potentially hazardous risks due to lack of food safety. Next slide, please. This department fosters working relationships to get to know the vendors, observe their needs, and ask if they are working with other city agencies for information. In the Mission District, there are some vendors who state that they have been working with nonprofits, and our department is happy to take the lead in providing the most accurate and up-to-date information regarding the permitting process. We encourage them to contact us for more information. Our department continues to break the language barrier by offering translations. We currently have 3 Spanish speakers or Spanish translators and 2 Cantonese translators. What is not commonly known is that there has been an uptick of illegal vending amongst those who are monolingual in Chinese, specifically in Cantonese. And all the effort that we and other city agencies conduct are to protect the public's health from potentially hazardous risks. And all this will continue to be conducted amongst our community until SB 972 is being codified. I will now pass the presentation over to my colleague, Senior Inspector Wen.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Danny Nguyen. I'm a Senior Health Inspector for the Mobile Food Facility and Unpermitted Vending Program. I have nearly 10 years of experience as an inspector specializing in food safety. San Francisco is a leader in innovation and cultural inclusion. The city is a hub where all types of cuisines are shared from all over the world. Street food is enjoyed by millions around the globe, but has had slow adoption in the US. Senate Bill 972 changes that for Californians. Next slide, please. On January 1st, 2023, SB 972 was enacted and sets forth a new set of regulations welcoming street vendors to join the regulated economy with a new type of food facility, compact mobile food operation. Many operations that some would consider once restrictive are now relaxed and could enable those with little resources to become food entrepreneurs. The Senate bill stripped some requirements that called for very costly, specialized manufactured equipment to store, transport, and serve food. Next slide, please. Compact mobile food operation. With SB 972, food could be vended from a code-compliant push cart, pedal-driven cart, stand, rack, wagon, individual, or other non-motorized unenclosed conveyance. From this legislation, equipment requirements are less stringent. Where washing sinks for some operations can now be replaced with extra spare, clean, and sanitized utensils, and hand washing sinks do not require warm water when working with pre-cooked foods. Vendors no longer need costly food safety certifications and can operate with a food handler card that can be obtained after passing a basic online food safety exam. Prior to SB 972, vehicles were required to be stored at a commissary or permitted facility. Home storage is now possible with the department approval. Now with this state legislation, operations selling less than 25 square feet of prepackaged non-perishable foods could be exempt from obtaining health permits under this law. California state legislators took a step back and looked at what requirements were practical, affordable, and easy to adopt. Next slide, please. Challenges that lie ahead involve amending local laws, multi-agency coordination, and enforcement. Compact mobile food operations must be codified in our local health code, Article 8, to set the stage for implementation. Our branch has developed a detailed permitting process for these food vendors, but needs other city agencies' participation to form a comprehensive pathway to legalization. Permitting involves working with multiple city agencies. For example, food vendors, in addition to obtaining a health permit, would also need a fire department permit to operate propane or gasoline generators, as well as a public works department to operate a business on the street. Enforcement is also a challenge. Identifying vendors is difficult as obtaining proper identification is often not provided. Often an individual may be associated with an operation one day and a different individual will take his or her place the following day, making tracing the responsible party very difficult. Scheduling unpermitted Scheduling unpermitted food vending missions requires extensive planning to ensure all applicable city agency resources are available at the same time. Education and enforcement is centered around food safety, just like restaurant facilities. Due process is always afforded to food vendors, but unfortunately, many vendors have not participated in abatement conferences. No different treatment is given, as our inspectors always ensure vendors are treated with respect and professionalism. Next slide. And now I invite Terrence Hong to the podium for any questions.
I'll note there's no public comment in the room or online, so it's up to you, commissioners. And before you all begin, I'd like just to congratulate you for the great teamwork in your presentation. That was very smooth. I've seen a lot, and it's clear you all practice. Thank you.
Thank you. It was an excellent presentation. I have a few questions, but I would like to preface my questions by a number of comments that I've heard that the Department of Public Health is consistently praised by local businesses for their excellent attention and follow through among all the agencies. So I want to preface my questions by that information. One of my questions is, who is immediately contacted for a food vendor violation and shuts down the vendor?
That probably would, Commissioner, that probably would be dependent on who made the observation. Some people, I guess the most common way is 311, and the Department of Public Health would take the lead, assuming that it was a food safety issue. I probably would reframe the question to the extent that shutting down, what that would entail is, again, back to the education component, because we ultimately want to work with them and get them permitted. Does that happen immediately, or does that happen without SB 972 finally passing? It's been a challenge, but the goal really is to work with them. So you're not wrong. Maybe I'm using a euphemism here, but I prefer to say we're asking them to temporarily close down, and then we'll work with them to try to get them on the right track to permitting and food safety.
Is identifying information of that vendor required during this process so follow-up and contact can be made?
All we can do is offer all of our information. It's really voluntary on their part. If I'm being frank, sometimes people choose not to give their information, and that's perfectly within their rights, so we don't force that issue. But of course, we do ask them what their information is, and again, it's up to them whether they want to, how they want to respond.
Is there, like with the food trucks, there is oftentimes a, food safety decal that's visible?
True.
Is it possible, or is that to have the same thing for the food vendor carts?
The carts actually have that same decal that you speak of. We've tossed around different ideas of making it larger, maybe making advertisement to make it more prevalent in terms of the public knowledge of what to look for. I think that some of those ideas haven't really come to fruition in that I think it takes both us and the public to work kind of together. And there's a lot of, we're thankful that there's a lot of trust put in our hands, but at the same time, that also is like, we're supposed to do the heavy lifting, and we appreciate that and understand that and accept that. So it would, I guess that part of the plan would require the public to be vigilant for that. And sometimes even for the brick and mortars, which are more established, not everyone uses that either. Yelp is a very popular way to look at things, but ultimately all that information is legally available to anyone, both for our permitted carts and for the permitted brick and mortars.
No, I agree. But if I'm walking the Embarcadero, it would, like one of the decals is the red. It does stick out. Just if it was part of the process of SB 972, that there would be a decal, I think it would really be helpful for those of us who walk along. So I'm just a thought. My second question is, what agency is responsible for monitoring the selling of alcoholic beverages at Fisherman's Wharf, Embarcadero as you walk along, particularly on the weekends. Maybe it's, I don't know who it is, and I don't know if it's within yours, but I've been offered that a lot, multiple times on walking. It's kind of in your face. So that's my question.
Only because I understand your first question better, just to really quickly give you a better answer. That would be awesome if we could have a red placard, which is the, green, yellow, red. That would necessitate kind of cooperation. So even though, we do want to have that partnership, if we're being completely honest, we don't have that food commitment from the other side at this point in time. So we're sort of seen as the adversary. They certainly, many of them won't talk to us, let alone post anything that we would give them. We're kind of actually considered a victory when they take our informational flyer. But yes, that would be one way to kind of really inform the public if we could get at least that cooperation from the other end. But it hasn't.
Yeah, just asking because usually it's the alcohol, which is even prominently displayed with the hot dog part next to it. And I'm like, when you got a stroller with a couple kids and people got.
That's an unfortunate situation. To answer your question, who has the most eyes on that situation are the San Francisco Police Department, only because they're always there. From the Department of Public Health, we're there every weekend, but we're there for a targeted mission. So when we walk up to someone, it's just as simple as them putting the alcohol away. And I know the police have told me with their laws, they're not allowed to ask beyond that. So you do have a component of the police department. I don't want to speak for them, but to my knowledge, they do have that specializes in that, and they do invite their partners from the state level. And so we'll play a role to the extent that we have access to food, and then we'll partner with the police to give them that access. But obviously, there are a lot of laws being broken in terms of selling the alcohol there. We're not the leaders in terms of the alcohol per se, but there's not hard lines when we're all working together, whether that's police, Department of Public Works, and Department of Public Health.
No, and I understand. I just, since I'm putting you on the spot and I understand it, but it's
challenging.
It can be challenging, which is on your slide of challenges where you have multi-agency cooperation that you hope and try for will this continue? Will this include, you had mentioned it will include permitting, especially for under SB 972, but will there also be accountability with the other agencies for both, the permitting and accountability? So it's not just DPH being in the lead, or is it, how does that work within your challenges, or is that a continuing challenge to be figured out?
I think the latter, because the reality is that after the decriminalization of street vending, you don't really have one agency that fits the role anymore, where the law enforcement did. Now it's more of an administrative penalty. So if the best way to give you an example, if I walked up to a vendor, it's very possible that they won't do anything. They won't run. Some might laugh, and I don't mean all, I mean some. The police the same way. They're very educated. They know what the roles of the police are, and the Department of Public Works is the same. It's only when all three are combined that we corner every aspect. So food safety component, the police are there so they don't rile people up. And the Department of Public Works also has a role, previously mentioned, that they have to have a permit to sell in the street. So only when all three of us are there together does that really elicit kind of the right response we want, which is either to comply, or if they self-vacate, it does temporarily solve the problem, but of course it's not a long-term solution.
So it's a continued challenge. So let's say, and I know this happened a couple times down at Fisherman's Wharf, and there was a weapon pulled, which you had mentioned in your presentation, with some of the vendors are a bit more aggressive. That's of concern for the safety of the food inspectors. In that case, I assume you would just walk away and call the police? Or what would happen if one of your inspectors, I mean, was put into a dangerous situation? I'm just recounting this a couple weeks ago when a gun was pulled on somebody.
Sure. No, I appreciate the concern about our safety, and that's our paramount goal as well. That said, I actually trust the inspectors when we're doing education. And then, of course, they always have the right to take themselves out of any situation. But when you're talking about enforcement, they'll get in trouble if they're not bringing the police department and also the Department of Public Works with them, because like I said, there's a role for all three to play. But for education, we certainly have become more savvy in terms of how, I mean, we deal with sometimes recalcitrant brick and mortar operators too. So that's not completely out of our bailiwick or not unfamiliar to us. But my family does wonder why I'm out at midnight sometimes now as opposed to the old days. That said, I think that our director, Director Fosdale, and the Assistant Director Calvert have put in measures for our protection, and I personally feel comfortable with the current measures in place.
Okay, thank you. I just am concerned, and I appreciate your answers, your thoughtful answers, and as a result, understand how challenging this operation is, and it's not an easy task. So, Commissioner Chung.
Well, thank you for the presentations. I echo Commissioner Geraldo that it's a really good presentations, and I've learned a lot from the process. My question is, do you have an estimate how many unpermitted food vendor we have in the city? And, and because, it seems like it's very specific to a certain minority groups like monolingual, like would there be other considerations that make them flee the scene other than, not wanting to cooperate?
Yeah, so kind of a two-part question. The first one, it's a real rough estimate, Commissioner, but we said we think maybe 400 or more, and those could be repeat offenders, if you will. So we may see them here at the Civic Center after, we come up to one or two, impound food, equipment, and the other 10 run away. It might be the same group at Fisherman's Wharf, at Union Square. So it's hard to really, but if you made us guess, our rough estimate would be 300 to 400. The second part's a little bit, I guess it's also an educated guess on my part, because you asked if there's something else that's making or driving them away besides a lack of a permit. And the answer probably would be yes. I'm not an expert in it, but I know that at least from the police's perspective, they feel that there's a criminal element, not of the actual vendors themselves, but of the kingpin, if I could put it that way, the person who pulls the strings from behind the scenes. Because if you recall, I just answered that previously, it was a criminal offense to do that. When they decriminalized it, they actually brought a bigger criminal element into it. That's my kind of perspective on things. Not judging it, it's just the challenge we have now. So people sometimes are running away because of they could have other concerns regarding not being in compliance with the law, things that I'm not qualified to speak on, but not just food safety. So your assumption is right, probably.
So just for clarification, so a lot of them are not actually small businesses, but they have a larger network in place, and somebody is, overseeing all that. And
I'm going into a little bit of assumptions here only because I can't prove it, but in doing this in 25 years, as I told you, I mean, back in the day in the Mission, when you had the churros vendor on the corner, not too many people raised too many eyebrows, but it does seem so organized. And again, I could be at one vendor and somehow 3 blocks away, they're all aware of my presence already. So it does seem, at least from an empirical point of view, that it's all very organized, all very choreographed. And we start to recognize some of the same faces, same trucks. And so that would be my educated guess, that it is coordinated and bigger than just a small business person trying to survive. They might actually be forced to do this. Some people have told our Spanish translators that they didn't even know that it was illegal. They just get paid a certain amount of money and they do what they're told.
okay, so yeah, I think that's really a very important point to drive home, is that, these things, maybe there are some preemptive solutions, and I'm just curious, like if you've been having discussions about those, and perhaps not now, but maybe later on, we'd like to hear like what other preemptive solutions you've implemented. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. I join my sister commissioners' praise for you and your team. Just picking up where Commissioner Chung left off, is there any, let's say that, you have a sense that people down the block know you're coming, or someone says, oh, I had no idea I was just paid to be here. And, last week I was on that corner, whatever. Are there any conversations with community groups that support the community, each different community, a Latino commission, let's say, in the mission, or like organizations throughout the city to, and this probably isn't necessarily the Department of Public Health taking the lead, but to try to suss out what's going on there, particularly when there seems to be some level of coordination above or coercion, or is there any communication with organizations that help and support individuals in the community around helping people who find themselves in that situation?
I love your idea, and I love it because we've tried to implement it. And I say try because there's been some successes and some setbacks as well. So we've done it in every neighborhood, but I'll use the mission as my example because it's the most extensive. So the team in the mission has reached out, and the community groups that come to mind, I think it's more than these three, are Kali 24, Meta, and Homey. And so we've talked to all three of them, and how we've empowered them is you already heard the last third of the presentation talk about SB 972 being law. We're waiting on the local legislation to make that a reality. We're not so, we don't think that's going to be a solve all for all. That being said, especially in the mission, because of some of the historical and cultural relations with street vendors, we think that a high preponderance of the people who are going to come into the fold are in the mission. And that's why we put a great deal of some of your ideas, Commissioner, already out to the community, because they're not going to necessarily come to us. Even with our Spanish speakers, we're still viewed as government or the enforcement. So we've educated the community organizations to let them be our conduit, to say, hey, look, this is coming down the pike. It's not going to be as stringent. It might be more economical, but we have to be patient. I mean, there's a certain process. The health department has made us aware. We did a presentation for a couple of the community groups. And so, yes, it's a smart way to go because sometimes the messenger is as important as the message. And so when we work with the community groups, and we try to do the same thing in Chinatown too, as you've heard that there's been an uptick in terms of that type of unpermitted vending there as well. It takes a village. And I like your idea about the community because we thought about that from the get-go, because no matter how hard we try, sometimes we just look like the enemy. Not intentionally, but we just do. So the community groups are a huge part of our plan to really get as many people under the legalized umbrella as possible.
I'm so glad you're already thinking about that and doing it. So that's really great. Going back to slide 4, where you explained to us what is unpermitted food vending, and you have these photographs here. Can you just kind of walk me through the scenario of what one of our inspectors, one of the department's inspectors, would do in that circumstance upon coming upon someone like this who's represented in these photographs? What would happen?
Totally great question. So there's two different scenarios. The first one is, obviously a bell could do this strictly by himself. In my case, I'll use me. Either I'm with a bell and he's helping me translate, or I have one of the other translators. I'll use that scenario only because that might be, more relatable to someone who's not fluent in Spanish. So you go up and I say, can you please ask them if they have a permit? 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, that'll be no. And then I'll say, please tell them that I'm going to do a food safety inspection. No different than if they had a permit at a restaurant. So I make sure that we see some sort of acknowledgement, or they answer in Spanish and the translator says, yes, they understand that. Then I say, tell them that we're not necessarily going to take unsafe food. Now, if equipment is contaminated, if we feel there's unsafe food there, we are going to impound that. I'll let them know everything that's going to happen prior to. I'll show them my thermometer. right? And then I'll also give them a pamphlet. Now that pamphlet is the one you saw in the presentation. Again, mostly it's a Spanish one, but it could be Chinese as well, depending on which neighborhood we're in and who we're talking to. And then we'll ask them, do they have any questions? And they don't have any questions, we'll move forward with the inspection. So you literally see the inspector put the probe into the hot dog, right? Ask them if they have any backup. A lot of times that's where the issue is. Christina showed you a great picture of some hot dogs in a cardboard box. We'll temperature that as well. And we'll show them, hey, look, this is dangerous. At a restaurant, we would do the exact same thing. We would probably have them discard the food. In your case, we're going to impound it because it's a little different. You're not a brick and mortar. So we're going to take this food with DPW's help. Thereafter, they get a food detailed report. Then the Spanish translator will explain everything. It just tells them what we saw as violation and tells them they have an opportunity to come to this very room, because we hold a hearing here once a month, for them to get more information or to prove that maybe we've made a mistake. We don't want to pretend like we're perfect. Maybe you had a permit, it was filed under the wrong name, or maybe, somehow something got lost in translation. They were nervous and they didn't have the information, or their brother had the permit. And so, to be fair to them and required by our laws, we have to have that administrative process. And so, again, back to the commissioner's question about identifying, we'll say, you want to share your information? If they say no, that's fine. But they'll get all of ours, time, place at this hearing. It could also be online if that's easier for them. But for the most part, it's usually here in person. And we haven't had too many takers, but that's kind of the stepwise process. And then we ask them if they have any questions before we end the interaction. And I would love if that was the interaction for everybody, but I'd say that's a small fraction. As previously mentioned, self-vacating is probably the general response we get when the group approaches.
And when you say the food is, like that box of hot dogs perhaps was impounded, what does that mean? Destroyed? Do you take it and put it in ice? Do you store it somewhere and say, on the 25th, the hearing is going to come and, you can come and get your box of hot dogs, or what do you do?
So I'll bifurcate food and equipment. So the food, yes, because it's unsafe at that point in time, I can't prove to make it safe. So we will tell DPW that the Department of Public Health is saying you can destroy this unsafe food. If it's a piece of equipment, we'll impound it, and then they'll have the opportunity to come here and explain, why it's maybe commercial grade, safe, and able to be returned to them, and they're willing to move forward with the permitting process. But if it's just a piece of equipment, we do need the help of DPW to transport it onto a city agency lot, secured before the hearing happens.
Thank you. And when you're in, on Valencia Street or something like that, and where there are at least 2 blocks of people lined up and all sorts of things are being sold, food as well as non-food items, how long are you generally in the area, do you think? Is it kind of like you start at 14th Street and go up to 18th Street, or what does that look like?
It could be pretty fast. I mean, we have the reverse effect of a celebrity. So instead of people coming towards you, people vacate pretty quickly. The challenge is, do you take a break and come back because you know that they haven't really shut down for the day? If you've taken someone's cart and food, you're pretty sure you've stopped at least for that day. But again, maybe not even that. It really is challenging. So we'll coordinate. I mean, we don't want to also waste the time of our sister agencies. So we'll ask the SFPD and DPW, well, how long are you guys out here for? And so if they go, we're done, then defeats the purpose of us staying out there unless we just want to focus on education. We can try to vacate them. But again, back to job one about safety for our staff, that probably wouldn't be the wisest decision. But missions can go as long as 4 hours if the whole group is together, but they can end in half an hour, depending on where we are and how many resources we have with the other agencies.
And you do go out and you hope as much as you can go out in a group, other agencies doing this inspection at the same time?
It's usually coordinated. So again, maybe I'll use the mission as an example. So because there's a 90-day mission ban, they're stationed there. So we know if we go out there, we can run into them at any time. But if we go to the Warriors Chase Center, which we're going this Thursday, that has to be targeted. So we've already made arrangements with, there's different police stations. So we have to, work with the right captain. And Chase is unique. They have their own station for their stadium. So we have DPW and SFPD involved. So we'll go at a certain time 7 o'clock, I think, right before the entrance. And whether we stay or not, it depends what the vibe, your experience will tell you, okay, we think they packed up for the night, or do you think they're just, hiding is the only word, they're kind of hiding for a few blocks away and they're going to come back. So that's kind of a professional judgment that you will make with your colleagues, both police and DPW. But I don't know if I answered your question.
You totally have. Thank you so much for entertaining these questions and giving these answers, because it helps me visualize, how you work. I think this might be my last question. Are there times, and maybe this exists already, where there's at a community center or at a job center or something like that, there will be a representative of Department of Public Health, the police department, everybody who's involved in the process of a wannabe legal entrepreneur getting the things that they need so that they're not running around the city, weeks upon time, that is there some kind of coordinated effort ever to say, hey, there's going to be this little fair, and people who want to get this into the process can come and knock down a number of the steps at once?
It harkens back to your first question, and the answer is yes. And who best to take the lead are community groups. So in those discussions, it's usually, we'll kind of drop an idea in their ears. Like, if you want to set this up, we'll be there. But it probably wouldn't, I don't want to say appropriate, but it looks better when the community sets it up and says, we're going to have the health department come, we're going to have the police department come, we're going to have DPW come. And so we do. I'll use the example of the port. So they held one, I want to say 6 months ago. So we stayed and we answered another senior inspector who's not here today, who didn't speak Spanish, but he had a Spanish translator with him, stayed and answered any question they had regarding the feasibility. Well, we shouldn't answer feasibility. They'd have to decide that for themselves economically. But he answered all the questions about what was required. The good news is that has since changed, and now, as you heard from the presentation, SB 972 has actually lowered some of those requirements. Not negotiating food safety, but maybe lowered some of the economic hardships that people may have incurred before. So we're hopeful that, especially in the mission, that we're going to get people joining the fold.
That's great. And again, I'm not surprised to know that you're there and you're already doing that. And thank you for that. Is it possible in these circumstances for people to knock out some of the paperwork that is required, or to receive it, anything to smooth the actual physical process of getting to the point where they have done everything that they need to do?
You're talking about
For the permitting process. Again, this is completely foreign to me, so my question may not make sense, but.
I'm going to actually use your phraseology. It's foreign to them too, and we have to understand that. So what we try to do, actually what we did do, is we really whittled down. It was an opportunity. We went online recently, and we switched our database. So it was an opportunity to really whittle down our forms. And the two biggest resources, to be quite honest, are going to be the Spanish speakers on our staff and the Spanish speakers at the Office of Small Business, because you're just more comfortable when someone goes, okay, what do you want to ask? And then we'll set aside time. I mean, it's not necessarily his primary job, but I know that all three inspectors have sat down, and people probably have overused the bell in terms of his Spanish capabilities, and we'll sit down and we'll talk to them, because we know it can be frustrating if you're reading something, and even if we're an English speaker, kind of official language and multiple documents, page 2 of 3.
I can't even tell you.
Someone else does my taxes, so I'm there too. But so that is always, our hand is always open. It could be partially our failure. Who knows currently where the blame lies? We don't have currently, for at least the unpermitted vending for the street carts, a huge rush to use those services. But for the mobile trucks, I would say for the vast majority of them, who are also monolingual many times, they almost always take advantage of that service to better understand the process and kind of walk them through step by step. And we don't like it. I mean, we in fact encourage it because we like it, because then we know they're doing it right.
Thank you so much. And I would encourage you the next time you present to talk about the things that you are doing, the initiatives that you're taking to make it easier, to make people more likely to be less terrified of the Department of Public Health coming up and talking to them, the things that the problem solving that you're doing, because clearly you're doing it, and it's really good for the community to hear and for us to know about it. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
So I didn't have a questions until you mentioned the word failure. I don't think that this is a failure. I think that we as a city is learning together how to be more accommodating to these like small businesses and small vendors, so that, they have a chance to survive, like so. But I have a question though, is like, I'm pretty sure that you guys are doing the right thing and also have been doing an exemplary job, because otherwise we'll be hearing a lot of stories about food poisoning from vendors. And I don't know if we actually have any stats on food poisoning at all. And of course, like knock on wood, I hope that that's zero. So I think that that kind of like helped to evaluate the gravity of the situation.
Commissioner, that was a poor choice of words on my part. And so I guess failure is more, but we have such great success with all the brick and mortars. This is a challenge that continues to be challenging. And so that's maybe a better choice of words.
Okay, my final, not even a question, well, it is maybe a wish. How's that? And I understand how challenging, I mean, it was an excellent presentation and the feedback from businesses has been very positive about DPH. I just want you to know that too. But if you had a magic wand, if I gave you a magic wand and said, okay, your goal is to make these food carts safe, et cetera, from the kingpin down to the cart on the street, what would the components, what would be, your wish if I was to give you this magic wand, starting from the kingpin
Sure.
on down, what would make a difference in all of your jobs?
Do I have immunity from the answer I'm about to give?
I mean,
Yes.
I mean, just, are we going to the FBI? I mean, do you know what I'm saying?
if I could wave a magic wand, Commissioner, I probably would roll back SB 946. SB 946 was the state law before 972. And this is where it gets a little, I want to, if you give me the opportunity to give you context, I think I can make myself clear. So SB 946 decriminalized the street food vending. And when I first heard the law, it didn't bother me at all either. But as I previously mentioned real briefly, unintentionally, it made it more a criminal endeavor, in my personal opinion. So I think that what took 2 officers to say, hey, why don't you get a permit with the Department of Public Health? And then you wouldn't have a problem anymore. Now it takes 12 city employees from different departments to move them along. So I think because the commitment from Dr. Colfax down all the way to us, the boots on the ground, is to help vendors, those who really want to get permitted would still get that help. I can't do anything about the kingpin who intentionally wants to got into this industry because based on illegality, that's how they're making their profit. So no law is going to change that calculation from their perspective, other than if it was illegal again. So it's way beyond my pay grade, obviously. But 946 was the law that kind of turned everything upside down in terms of starting the ball rolling and kind of where we are now.
If I find the magic wand, I will make sure and pass it on. But thank you so much,
Chair.
all of you, for your excellent presentation. Yes.
Chair Gerardo,
and-
I just wanted to also acknowledge and thank the team. As you heard, this is a time of challenge for the team. And just to be clear, they have done not only a remarkable job of responding to the street vendors, but also have their baseline jobs of inspecting 7,000 food establishments in San Francisco. So I think part of this tension is also, when a member of the public enters a restaurant, there is a social contract, if you will, in the city that it has been inspected and that the food is safe. That is some different dynamic when someone is out on the street, not checking the placard on the food cart to see if it's permitted or not. And this team has done an amazing job of going out in late hours, responding to calls where there is an event at Bill Graham or down at the Chase Center. And they've been very flexible, and we've been working to also change the bureaucratic system to give them more flexibility. Many people have been going out with no overtime in order to be responsive to what we hear from policymakers about serious concerns. I also just wanted Dr. Philip to just provide a brief update. There's an effort underway to also get a roving team that would provide more flexibility in this work, but just really want to thank Patrick and Terrence and the team for their leadership in this. They also send weekly reports about the work that's being done. And again, you heard some of the best intentions around making things more easy for certain vendors to become legal, and there have been unintended consequences as a result of that. But I wanted Dr. Philp to just mention about the roving teams.
Good afternoon, commissioners. And again, I also want to echo and add to the thanks to the environmental health team. They are really the best in the state at what they do, and it is a very challenging time. And part of the way that they are rising to the challenge is trying to innovate new models. So you heard a little bit about the nighttime activities, which are challenging, and we are trying to support that administratively and finding creative ways to allow that to continue and to find ways for people to actually get overtime for that kind of work. But one of the other innovations that they are working on is the idea of having a roving team, which would be able to respond when there are groups of vendors that are occurring around a ball game or around a concert or an event, to be able to move quickly. And that is not historically how we've been set up. It really has been routine inspection of the safety at brick and mortar. So kudos to the team for the work that they're doing and the fact that they are adapting to try and really keep San Franciscans as safe as possible from foodborne illnesses, and to really do their part and go above and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your comments and good luck. It's challenging, and as Commissioner Christian said, we'd love to hear an update whenever it's possible to your challenges.
And thank you as a representative of somebody of the people who like to eat a lot and like to go out of their house to do it. I thank you for your work.
And you're so busy, so please don't feel that you need to stay for the rest of the meeting. Do whatever feels right. Check with your supervisors, please. And thanks again. Let's move on to item 4, San Francisco Mental Health Services Act, fiscal year 23-24 and fiscal year through fiscal year 25-26, 3-year integrated plan. And Ms. Brown, give me a second to pull up the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. My apologies for not being in person. There's a flood warning, and I did not want my car to be blown off of the hill. So, so I'll be remote. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mark. So hello, commissioners. Thank you for having me. I'm Jessica Brown. I'm the director of the Office of Justice, Equity, Diversity and Inclusion / the Mental Health Services Act for our behavioral health services. This is our 3-year integrated plan, which is going to be going over all of the work that we've been doing with the Mental Health Services Act and future plans for the next 3 years. This plan is, there is a larger plan that is currently posted to our website and that is receiving public comment, which we will be, once that comment process is over, we'll be submitting the plan to the Board of Supervisors and also to the state to review. Next slide, please. So behavioral health services, we offer a full range of specialty behavioral health services that provide a culturally diverse network of community behavioral health programs, and also private psychiatrists, psychologists, and therapists. We provide mental health and substance use services that include outpatient and inpatient treatment, medication management, linkage to services, an array of other specialty treatment services. special services that include providing residents of San Francisco who receive Medi-Cal and also the San Francisco Health Plan, and residents that have limited resources. Next slide, please. So the mental health services was enacted into law in 2005, and it was a way to allow county departments to have a transformation in providing innovative behavioral health services. So we receive state funding based off of a tax. That tax is 1% on personal income over $1 million to be able to allocate to various counties throughout California in order to provide transformational mental health services to address unmet needs. And the Mental Health Services Act is based off of core principles that focus on involving wraparound services, client-centered approaches, culturally responsive, innovative plans, and also relying on people with lived experience to also provide engagement and linkage into our care. Next slide, please. Okay, so this goes over just a little bit about how our funding and our revenues are for the Mental Health Services Act. Again, we are allocated by the state through cash transfers of state tax withholding and payments. Those cash transfers are largest in months that are following quarterly tax payments and also year-end tax payments. The tax filing and payment deadline for the calendar year of 2022, taxes were at first and second quarter were estimated to extend into November 16th. And so we'll go over a little bit on why there was a bit of an increase in our funding for MHSA. And then also too, we really look at, we have a financial forecaster and a Mike Geis who provides us with an overview of what we're to expect as each county for our MHSA budget in the next three fiscal years. Next slide. So again, part of our requirements as MHSA are that we have to prepare this 3-year plan and also an expenditure plan that we turn in yearly. We have to gain approval through our stakeholders through a 30-day public comment process. All MHSA expenditures are required to be in accordance with an approved plan. And that's approval by the Board of Supervisors and also our state department, the Department of Healthcare Services. MHSA cannot be used to supplant any existing resources, and counties are required to prepare and submit an annual revenue and expenditure report each year. Next slide. Okay, this is going to show you all, this is the statewide MHSA estimates. As you all can see, we had a bit of a surplus in year 23-24, and that has to do to the delays in taxes. We were delayed for our taxes revenue from 21-22, and so we'll see a bit of an increase in 23-24. But as you all can see, our budget is significantly going down a bit. Because again of just how our funding is volatile and really relying on tax revenue. So 24-25, 25-26, we have a little bit of I guess a flat line in our budget, even though we see a large increase in funding in 23-24. Next slide. Okay. So this 3-year plan, again, we are required to collect community stakeholder feedback on really integrating this feedback in all areas of MHSA programming, including our budget and our integrated plan and annual update. This 23-26 3-year integrated plan really reports and outcomes and also community feedback and input on our program outcomes highlighted for fiscal year 21 and 22. That's going to be in the plans of 23-24. Next slide. So MHSA, we are broken down into 5 funding components by the state. We have community services and supports, which is more of our traditional mental health services. That includes full service partnership, also to more residential recovery and oriented treatment services. We also have innovations, which allows us to use innovation dollars to create and to test out new approaches to providing mental health services, particularly for diverse and vulnerable communities. We also have the prevention and early intervention, which allows us to have more population-focused mental health services, along with workforce education and training, which allows us to not only train the next set of clinicians, but really make sure that our clinicians are reflecting of the communities that we're serving. And then capital, facilities, and technology needs. This is where we're able to use funding for our clinics to be able to renovate them, also to add any type of technology needs that can again improve mental health access for our clients. Next slide. Oh, let me actually, can I go back one more? Sorry. So San Francisco is a little bit unique. We have 85 programs that receive MHSA dollars. And even though we have 5 funding components, we have 7 service categories. So that is our recovery-oriented treatment, mental health promotion, peer-to-peer services, vocational services, housing and for FSP clients, workforce development, and capital facilities and information technology. And the reason why we have these 7 categories is that we wanted to be able to expand what we would consider community services and support by adding more additional non-traditional behavioral health interventions. So if a client is looking to get back into the workplace, they also need access to housing, or they want to have peer support services, we expanded these 7 categories to be able to account for that. So we not only are providing just the traditional mental health treatment, but we're doing what is necessary to really provide a wraparound approach to the holistic needs of our clients. Next slide, please. Okay, so part of our legislation, part of the purpose for the MHSA, it is an advocacy law. We have a very intense community program planning process where we get feedback from our community members on how we should be allocating funding from MHSA. Also, where are some gaps in services that we can actually be able to address. We've hosted 16 community engagement meetings across the city. We've had participants of over 165 individuals, and they range from being local veterans, transitional age youth, vocational program participants, LGBTQ plus community, also maternal health providers, Black African American and Latinx communities, and also law enforcement as well. So we draw from that feedback in order to do a lot of program planning that you'll see in the 3-year plan. Next slide. Okay, so some of the outcomes that you all are seeing with fiscal year 2021, really looking at how we've been able to sustain funds for our 85 MHSA programs. During COVID, a lot of our population-focused programs really revved up their services to be able to expand and support more of the community needs. And so because of that, we were able to sustain mostly our population-focused programs. Also, we continue to provide funding, support, and evaluation for newly funded MHSA programs, such as improving maternal mental health for Black African American birthing people, working with the Homeless Children Network and their MAHAT program, which was recently funded by Dream Keepers Initiatives, and MHSA was able to sustain that funding. We also have our Kumba Peer Fellowship Program, which allows peers to be able to provide work experience in behavioral health clinics. We have Forte, Wellness in the Streets, technology-assisted mental health solutions, and recently we launched a culturally responsive intervention for Black African American communities within 4 of our civil service clinics. We also continue to grow our full service partnerships by expanding treatment slots, and also continue to monitor and engage stakeholder collaborative meetings. We do have a new modernization of MHSA under Senate Bill 326, also known as Proposition 1, that is proposing to really change the landscape of the Mental Health Services Act and really expand the services to focus on housing and substance use. Next slide. Okay, Some of our peer specialists, we really emphasize the importance of consumer participation in mental health workforce. We have a peer certification program that has created a lot of collaboration between RAMS, San Francisco State, and City College. And also to ensuring that our peers are receiving professional development and work experience, as well as helping us identify and connect with clients that also share similar lived experiences. So all of our MHSA programs are encouraged to hire peers as a member of their staff. We at BHS currently do that. We have peers hired in our IT department, janitorial services, cafe, also reception area. We also have peers hired in our MHSA program managers. And so we really looked into how to have people within these programs that have lived experience and connection to the communities that we're serving. So our peers can also be included in community advocate partners, really helping us with being evaluation consultants on some of our new MHSA programming. And again, ensuring that we're helping with linkage and retention to care gaps. Next slide. Okay. And I think I might have had this reversed. So I kind of went over this about the different programs that we've been funding and sustaining. We also have included initiatives in overdose prevention by helping provide funding and support for our behavioral health population division within BHS, as well as again sustaining and really putting a large investment into culturally congruent programs. Next slide. Okay, so some of our spotlights. So we have faced various crises in mental health illness, overdose, and homelessness, and also housing insecurities. Each factor has been exacerbated by the high cost of living, and also the impacts of COVID and the trauma and of systemic racism. So we have been committed to really being a part of San Francisco mental health system to transform how that we providing mental health care to all San Franciscans who are experiencing homelessness. So MHSA provides 51% of its funding to address serious mental health illnesses and co-occurring substance use challenges through our full service partnership programs. We also provide a comprehensive housing program to better meet the needs of our unhoused individual. That includes emergency stabilization units, transitional housing, and also permanent supportive housing as well. We have also really focused, again, as I mentioned, on population-focused programs that address racism and equity issues, and also have Wellness in the Street, which primarily works with individuals directly to provide services where they are at and connecting the services where they are at. Next slide. Okay. So we have a strong emphasis on program evaluation. All of our MHSA programs are required to submit a mid-year and year-end report. This report, in collaboration with the business office as well, is a way to help monitor and provide technical assistance and feedback to our programs, as well as this information is helpful to be able to submit narratives and data reporting to the state. So we have to report to the state every year. We put in this process of having a mid-year and year-end report so that our programs can provide us narratives on how they're actually doing. And in addition to including site visits, and we also have a state audit every 3 years where our the Department of Healthcare services get to actually visit our CBOs and also speak with some of their clients and how the services are doing. Next slide. Okay. So the MHSA regulation, the Mental Health Board established to Section 5604 shall conduct public hearings. So this is just one of our regulations that we have to have a 30-day public comment. As I mentioned before, the plan is actually posted on our website now for our community members to provide comment and feedback before we submit it to the state. So we're currently in our 30-day process. Once we are done with that, we'll be submitting this presentation as well as the plan over to the Board of Supervisors to get their adoption into the Board of Supervisors. Okay, and next slide. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here for additional questions. Thank you.
There's no public comment, commissioners.
Thank you very much for, it's a very informative presentation. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. In the evaluation slide or that you presented, what outcome data is reported in the annual update? For example, for the FSP 850 clients served in 21-22, is there outcome data on those clients and in going forward? I understand you've got within evaluation. I'm always concerned or interested in the outcome data of the efforts.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner. So we actually put our outcome data in the 3-year plan. So we have more of an extensive overview. So for example, we have 12 full service partnership programs especially during this fiscal year as we expanded, that serve children, youth, and family, transitional age youth, adult and older adults. And some of the data that we have is that we've had a reduction in our justice involvement especially for children, youth, and family. Justice involvement has decreased from 9% to 2% from our families participating in a full service partnership. This also includes looking at homelessness and hospitalization. Due to our wraparound services approach with FSP, we've been able to see a significant decrease. So for children and families, we've had a decrease from 3% to 1% and 14% to 3% as far as being unhoused and hospitalized. For TAY, we have noted that we have had more of our transitional age youth spending more time in general living, SRO, and supervised placement, and less time experiencing homelessness. This is also including justice involved systems as well. For adult and older adults, again, we saw an increase in our clients participating in general living, SROs, and supervised placement, and less time spending homelessness or hospitalized. This also includes justice involved has decreased over 2-fold, resulting in 6,421 days spent in a criminal justice setting, which has decreased due to being connected to an FSP provider. And that's the same thing for our adult and older adults. So our 3-year plan has a lot more of an extensive overview of these outcomes. We also collect data by race and gender, and so we can see a significant impact on our clients who are particularly Black African American that participate in FSP services. And I'm happy to send you all that 3-year plan as well. It is 200 pages, just FYI, but it does give an extensive overview of the outcomes.
I started reading it and got bogged down by about page 150, but that's where I've got to be honest, my attention span waned. But with that outcome data, even just a quick snapshot, I think rather than having to slog through the whole thing, I think would be very helpful to us. You have it at the top of your head. And if it's possible, just to pull whatever those pages are and be able to send them to Mr. Morowitz to send to us, I think would really help us further understand the wonderful work you're doing. But we're always pushing in this group for outcome data. So just a couple of those pages would be helpful. And
yes,
I'd really appreciate it. My last question is, with the newly funded programs that you listed for the 23-24 going forward in the presentation, will these be evaluated at the end of year 1 with data and outcome information?
Yes, and depending on when their contract is certified. So for example, the Birthing People contract, we're still in Still
Right.
being certified, so they won't have to turn in a mid-year report. So we usually have all of our programs are required to submit a report with outcome data. We usually have a mid-year report that's due in March and then a year-end report that's due in September. So they will be excused from turning in the mid-year report because March is like next week. But they will have to submit a year-end report in September. Now, the thing about it is we do collaborate with them on developing their performance objectives because we don't want to set them up for failure. And we realize that we want to give them a startup year. And so the performance will be based off of their performance objectives. And we'll be working with our BOCC on evaluating them fairly, of course, but also to requiring for them to submit that data.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I know, always be interested in especially the newly funded programs as well.
Yes.
In your view and your staff's view, how they are beginning to meet the goals that you have established. I think we would be, any information in September or after
Oh, yes.
September, we would love to see.
Yeah, I'm happy to send you all the reports in September, October. When we submit them, I can submit that to you. And we're happy to also come back to just give an overview, particularly for the Birthing People Project. I know that's a pretty, a new program for MHSA and a new population that we're supporting.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, there are questions? Yes, Commissioner Chung.
Thank you again for the presentations, and it's wonderful to see how much mileage we get out of like the entire Mental Health Service Act. I have two questions. The first one is in terms of LGBT clients seeking services, are there adequately accessible professionals for them, in the system? Because that seems to be an ongoing conversation. And I think that we as the city have done a phenomenal job to create, like a network compared to like private insurance that a lot of us painfully aware that we all have to like pay out of pocket to get our own, providers. So, so I think that sexual minority and gender minority communities are constantly finding ways, to get culturally appropriate services.
Yes, that's a good question. Thank you, Commissioner. And we have a variety of different programs that focus predominantly on LGBTQIA communities. And that's, one of the great things about the Mental Health Services Act is that we are able to be expansive and innovative in how we approach culturally responsive care. So we have the Transgender Pilot Project under the MHSA Services Act that provides peer support for those that identify with the trans community, and it is staffed by those with lived experiences. We have piloted with our HR department a lived experience desired qualification. So being able to, again, unfortunately, we cannot say that we can only hire for a special condition, but we can do it as a desired qualification. And so we could ask for those that have lived experience serving or are living with LGBTQIA communities, and that has been very successful in helping us hire clinicians and peers with those lived experiences.
Okay, so this includes, the intersectional intersectionality perspective, like because, like for instance, transgender clients might not be, like needing like mental health support for their gender dysphoria, but instead they might have other complex, like mental health issues that they're seeking treatment on, but they do need someone who's familiar with, the populations in order to serve them appropriately.
Yes, absolutely. And all of our programs will serve a subgroup within that particular race categories. So for example, our culturally responsive care for Black African American clients, it's serving all Black African American clients, regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. They have access to receive culturally congruent care that really looks at lived experience and also cultural value, while also addressing systemic racism and the impacts of racial trauma. And that's the same thing for our birthing people services, is that we do service the whole person, not just the one part of them.
Thank you. And I wish that we can offer this to the entire San Francisco, including the private insurance network, because I think that a lot of them are still struggling to find ways, like to coordinate their work. And so far, I haven't seen anyone doing a good enough job, to meet that needs. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. Wonderful work. And it's building on what Commissioner Chung just said, which, as I tend to do, maybe we could make some money for the department if we had enough clinicians to offer this integrative, culturally congruent care to those of us in the city who actually can pay something for the work. It's probably a pipe dream, but it would be an area where the department could continue and expand its leadership if there's anything ever that could come of that. I wanted to just speak to praise and recognize the strength and significance of your peer specialists and your work in that area. I'm particularly historically familiar with the peer specialists that work in the criminal justice system and in the collaborative courts and the treatment courts. They are so fundamentally useful and bring exponential value to working with the participants in the courts from the perspective of being a peer. And they're wonderful and valuable and so incredibly useful. So I want you to have that feedback, something that I'm sure you already know, but they are, the work could not get done as well without them. And to the extent that there's any funding that is necessary, additional funding, which I know there is, for stipends and things like that for people, I encourage you to use us to do whatever we can to increase those resources, because I know that they are woefully not adequate and we could use so much more. So thank you so much for that work.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, we're very happy with our peer program. I mean, we've had some of our peers even go back to school and become clinicians. And so there's been a great pathway into the Department of Public Health through our peer program. I think one of the things is just really, because as I mentioned, cost of living is significantly high in San Francisco. So any way that we can increase the peer salaries to retain them, I think would be very helpful. And, I just want to give a honor to Dr. Hillary Kunins and Dr. Brett Koufax. Have been very supportive of the initiatives that we've been having with MHSA and really ensuring that we are utilizing peers because we understand their value as far as helping us link and retain clients into care.
Thank you. Dr. Koufax?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to also reflect back on Ms. Brown's leadership of this program. MHSA is a very critical program. It's very complex. There's a lot of process involved to just getting resources out the door to support programs is an extreme effort. And then also emphasizing a focus on outcomes. This is something that there's a lot of appropriate focus on, and just want to reinforce the department's support for looking at outcomes in every program in behavioral health, including with MHSA. So thank you, Ms. Brown. Really appreciate your leadership in this area.
Thank you for your time And I'm glad you didn't come and swim to 101 Grove. It was a good decision on your part. So,
Thank you.
thank you very much for your presentation. And
You're welcome, and I'll get that information to you all today.
great. I appreciate
Okay.
it. Stay dry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Item 5 is emerging issues, commissioners. Anything? Okay. Hearing nothing?
Mark?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So I've thought about this a lot, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I've also, kind of spoken publicly about the idea and encouraging the city, the Board of Supervisors, to explore it. If there's a way for the city to subsidize housing for the health workers we need, particularly, and my focus is particularly on the clinicians we need for mental health services and substance use disorders, trained, experienced clinicians to subsidize their housing in the city. The city is looking at how to use these buildings downtown that are no longer really commercial and in any sense, and people have fled and people are coming back. It's dynamic, but we have resources that could be. I imagine we might be able to figure out ways to use them to support the clinicians we're trying to hire, be they doctors, nurses, mental health clinicians, psychologists, things like that, who can't afford to live in the city. And one of the reasons that many of them are not taking the offers of the jobs that are available and haven't been filled is that it doesn't pay enough to stay here. And so I just hope that the city, the board, and perhaps people who work in the department have ideas about how the city could support them in different ways if the salary itself is not sufficient, a sufficient draw.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will note that in the notes, in the minutes.
I'm going to just add to that, if I may, is if there was a model, or if the apartments aren't all full, with what SFUSD is doing with the teachers' housing and those apartments, there might be a possibility of any kind of partnership, because that's quite a facility. That's possible, as well as I don't know if, I know it's not called Hastings School of Law, but in the Tenderloin, the whatever, UC's School of Law, my understanding is those apartments are not completely full. Any of the other agencies that we could possibly contract with would be just a possibility for somebody in the real estate division, so to speak. Just a thought.
Thank you all for your innovation and creativity. In this budget season, it's difficult, but it's good to throw ideas around. It's always, I will try to do what we can to pass them along to the folks who might be able to hear them. So there's no public comment, but we can move on to a consideration of adjournment when you get a chance, please.
I so move to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mark.